AI is a pretty cool thing, and it could also be very strange. Sometimes it gives you exactly what you want, and other times it it doesn't. But when you combine AI with your favorite thing, it can create some pretty cool stuff. And one of my favorite things is the Disney parks. I've really only been to Disneyland, but I hope one day to have gone to all of the parks. And there's a big problem with the parks right now. And it's the fact that they're just not really being upkept, and not a lot of money's being put into them, at least here in America. Over in overseas, they get to have all the cool stuff. When do we get a new Space Mountain? No? Okay. Something that I thought is, it doesn't take a lot of money and can make me happy until we get new stuff here at Disneyland, out in California, is AI. Now, if you haven't seen the video that Offhand Disney did, it was amazing. It really inspired me to kind of take that idea and just make it into my own thing. So sorry for stealing the idea, but it was just, I started messing around with the AI mid-journey, and I was having so much fun. I was like, I'll just make a whole video out of it. So that's what I'm doing. So basically, if you don't know how to read the title, this is my own version of a Disney park created by Midjourney AI, which is a free AI you can use. It took me a little bit of messing around to get it right, but once I was going with it, I just couldn't stop. So this park, basically, there's no limits, there's no money, no size requirements needed. This is just pure imagination of my ideal Disney park. If they were making a new one, wherever it was, this is what I would put in it. This is what I would want to see. Alright, so the first thing I really did was I wanted to have some sort of vision to go off of when I was prompting the AI. And so I drew a quick sketch of I kind of imagined it based off of, how Disney parks are usually laid out, with a hub, a castle, Main Street. And for the lands, usually you have Adventureland off to, the left, near the bottom, Frontierland up to the top, Fantasyland kind of near the center top, or maybe on the right side, and then Tomorrowland off to the right. Now, I did want to have a New Orleans square, but I wasn't sure where to put it, because when I was drawing it out, I didn't have enough space, and I thought, why not link it up to Main Street and have it below Tomorrowland? So, in this case, you would actually enter Tomorrowland through Main Street. Now, it'd probably make a crowd pinch point, but, who cares? I don't. But the sketch is, very crude. Obviously, I'm not a concept artist. But I did add a little bit of color just to help, further that a little more. Obviously, you can see it does help a little bit. It kind of helps, convey each area and how unique it is. But that's really what I'm trying to create. This is really what I'm trying to go for with the park. But let's get started. So the first thing we're going to look at is the park entrance. So usually you have you have the train going by, you have a train station, maybe a flower bed, and it took really a while. This is kind of where I started getting used to using Midjourney, but I was able to get a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, the first ones I got were very artistic, not exactly realistic images, but I still love the look of them. Obviously, when you put Disneyland or Disney World into the prompt, it just starts putting castles everywhere, so I had to, stop doing that. Usually I would only say attraction or ride. That would kind of help push it along. but a few of these came out really well. Obviously, these four set at night, they kind of just look more like castle entrances, not really like a train station. But then I started getting closer to what I was looking for. Now, this is more like you're looking from inside the park, less so from outside. But I feel like they really hit the mark. It was really what I was looking for. They looked so cool. This one, even though it's a little bit more blurry, I love the actual train station in the background. It kind of looks like it's, covered in American flags, more like Disney World. But then this one, I just love it looks very like New York City architecture on the sides. Not really sure what that big glowing orb is. Maybe it's a clock. But overall, these two ended up being my favorite. And another thing here, it's not really related, but I just thought it was very cool, is this sign that it actually came up with. I was just surprised that you can pretty clearly read Disneyland theme park, but it's a little cut off at the end. I just thought that was pretty cool, and I really do love the look of that with the deep blue sign with the gold on it. But overall, I think that is what I would want the entrance to look like. Now, for our Main Street isn't necessarily a hard thing. Once I started putting it in, turn of the century town, 1900s, 4th of July, it started coming out with these black and white little sketches, which I thought they looked pretty cool, but not really what I was going for. I do love the way they look, very classic, kind of Main Street look. And something I thought was very interesting was, you can see I said set at 4th of July, and it started putting fireworks in the background, which I thought just really, it looked really cool. And then, I started adding castle in the distance, looking down Main Street. And, this one I really love because, it's right looking straight down, but the castle is just huge. And after a few tries, I came with this one, which, the castle is a lot smaller, and I love the way it looks far in the distance, but not a big fan of the architecture. So maybe if you combine those two together, you get a pretty, probably what I was looking for the most. Now, of course, for the castle itself, pretty important when it comes to a park. I was kind of having a little bit of trouble coming up with the right look, and eventually I started coming up with these, and I think of all of them, my two favorite ones were these two, specifically this one where it's more centered. I think it looks so cool with all the palm trees and kind of the glow, almost like there's, watery mist getting shot around. But I think it just ended up looking super cool. This other one, I love the little like floodlights, but not necessarily what I'm looking for. But overall, I just think it came out looking pretty cool. And I think the last thing we need on a Main Street is our Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse statue. Now, originally I was like, oh yeah, whatever. Just, keep the normal statue, not a big deal. But when I started putting it into the prompt, it started coming out with some pretty wacky looking stuff. It kind of just took the Mickey Mouse and ran with it. So it's a lot of Mickey Mouse holding hands, but this one, it's a lot more realistic, but I think it's kind of cool. It could be maybe like Walt Disney with little Mickey Mouse hat on. I think that would be kind of cool. And this one was probably just very interesting because it was very abstract. It's almost like, Mickey and Minnie Mouse are the statue. And then these ones just got really weird. But specifically, I love this one on the bottom right. I don't know what's going on with that statue, but I think it just came out looking really cool. I love the little pedestal. So that's our Main Street. So let's move on. All right, next up, let's move clockwise around here, starting with Adventureland. So if you don't know already, I'm a big fan of Indiana Jones, And Adventureland is one of my favorite lands at Disneyland. The problem is, you don't get a lot of it with it. Now, I still didn't want my Adventureland to just be Indiana Jones, but I really wanted it to have what Adventureland was going to be in the late 90s, which was a complete redo and just like massive upgrade to have all these rides interconnected and a big lost expedition. So that's what I wanted to base my Adventureland off of. And you can see here, I kind of wanted to do something a little strange and actually have kind of a Matterhorn type ride in my Adventureland. So no Matterhorn, in between Fantasyland and Tomorrowland. But this is what I wanted it to be, and kind of like that kind of draws your eye to the back of that land. So I'd still want, Indiana Jones adventure or some form of it. You can see here, Jeep ride inside a temple with Indiana Jones, and you could just imagine it's Indiana Jones adventure. But I still liked some of these that were coming out. But more specifically, inside the mountain ride, I wanted it to be a Matterhorn like a roller coaster, where you're being chased by maybe it's Bigfoot or the Yeti, but some of these just came out looking super cool. It kind of took, I think I put in red-eyed beast, but it kind of took the red. And specifically, I love this one, kind of like the beast just kind of staring at you through the foliage. But overall, that's really what I want Adventureland to look like. And I think out of all of these, my favorite would be this one. It just looks so picturesque, cinematic, and I love just that kind of Indian Delta look of the whole place. Now moving up, we have Frontierland. Now, I wouldn't say that it was very hard to do. The AI just seems to really like making Thunder Mountain. So let's just start there. Thunder Mountain itself. When I was putting it in, it started creating these really cool, Thunder Mountain on an island, sort of like Paris, and these rivers running around it, and they just look really nice. Some trails going around, and even these with the steamboats going around on the rivers. I wanted it to look a little more like the Mark Twain, but I think it still looks really cool. Now, Thunder Mountain itself, I kind of wanted to upgrade it a bit to more of like an RMC coaster. So you can see in these, it's more like a steel wooden mixture. And I just love how, it looks like it goes a lot faster and it weaves in between the tunnels a lot more. Just overall a bigger Thunder Mountain. And then I also wanted to have a sort of Splash Mountain type ride. Not necessarily Splash Mountain, but just kind of some sort of original ride, like a log flume, maybe going through a river rapids. And it came up with a few good ones. Overall, I just kind of like maybe like a mix between Splash Mountain and Grizzly River Run, something like that, but still have that, classic Red Rock, Thunder Mountain, landscaping. And when it came to the actual town of, Big Thunder, whatever, Thunder Mesa, whatever you want, whichever one it's going to be, I just kind of put in Ghost Town or Old Western Town, and it came up with a lot of really cool, lit up, dark, kind of stormy images. Don't necessarily know why it kind of went in that direction. It kind of did a lot of lanterns. I don't think they had that many, but I think out of all of these, one of my favorite ones was this one, which was kind of a blurred camera look with all the lens artifacting, and I think it just looks really cool. Like, it looks like it could have been an actual picture taken at outside of a big Thunder Mountain. And now moving along to Fantasyland. Now, personally, I'm not really a big fan of Fantasyland, but you do gotta have it. And really, the kind of the feel I wanted to go for was, I was very inspired by Beauty and the Beast. I love that kind of like little quaint French town. Bavarian's village look. And it was putting out these really cool, like, very kind of ramshackle, put together buildings. And something else is in each of these, there's kind of like a tower in the distance. And that kind of led me to think like, oh, it would be really cool as if there was sort of like a tangled, maybe like walkthrough attraction or a dark ride. And it put this together, so this is probably more like a walkthrough attraction, but I just really love the way it looks with those, purple and yellow color scheme with the flowers and all the gold, and it just looks really nice. And really the last thing I wanted to put in was, I was trying to put in carousel or, horse ride. I wasn't really sure what to do, and it came up with these, which were kind of like little horse caravans wandering around, and it really took me back to near the opening of Disneyland, when they had the donkey ride where you could get on an actual animal and ride around in Frontierland. I thought it would be kind of a cool idea to have that sort of thing with horses in our Fantasyland. Now, obviously, that's a lot of maintenance and upkeep, but I thought it would be, a very unique thing to have in a Fantasyland. Now, for Tomorrowland is probably one of the more fun ones to do, just because you're looking at a more futuristic style. There's a lot more imagination that can go into it. I do love, kind of at Disneyland's Tomorrowland, how there's a lot of vegetation everywhere, a lot of plants, and I just kind of wanted to mix that with just the white, cleanness of Space Mountain, and just kind of bring that, unify the entire land with it. So obviously I went more like cyberpunk, futuristic, solar punk style, and in a lot of these I tried to include a monorail, but in one of these I actually came up with this little train with kind of like, vegetation on the roof, and I thought that would make such a cool people mover, is to have it kind of an enclosed little carriage, and you had actual growing plants on the top. I thought that was a little funny, but it also just looks super cool. And in my Tomorrowland, I want it to be a little more like Magic Kingdom and have Tron in there too. And I got these two, which just look super cool. Out of both of these, I think I favored this one a little more. I just love the kind of unified blue and, striping with that kind of garden on top. Something else I kind of thought is you could even have like an Autopia style attraction on top of Tron, and I think that would just bring the whole thing together. I do love this one with kind of like the blue rim lighting, but I think this one just kind of captures the spirit of Tron a little more. And of course, what would it be without a Space Mountain? Now, Space Mountain, it kind of generally makes this kind of tall spire looking building, and it took a while to get one that I really liked. Of these four, kind of in a more, metally, not exactly the, solar punk style, but I do love the top left. It just really screams like Space Mountain, but more like a volcano. I thought that was really cool looking one. But overall, I do kind of like the look of this one. I know it's not exactly a Space Mountain, but I just kind of love the, the blue and the white with the vegetation growing around, and even like a stage on top, or, an escalator like the original Space Mountain had. And inside, I wanted to have it a little more like, I was very inspired by the look of Interstellar. Like, I love the scenes in there and just the visuals of that, and that's really what I wanted to bring to my Space Mountain instead of the classic, disco ball stars. So a lot of like streaking lights and comets, and really help make you look like you're going very fast. But overall, I had a lot of fun with Tomorrowland. So our final land to go through is New Orleans Square. Now, this would be pretty similar to Disneyland's, just kind of in a different place. with a few unique twists. So, of course, you have your New Orleans street leading, kind of just a long street leading you down. And at the end, I wanted to have the Haunted Mansion kind of up on a hill. Like the original idea for the Haunted Mansion when it was being developed, it was going to be a haunted house up on a hill at the end of a street. So I kind of wanted to have that too. And for the look of the actual mansion itself, it was pretty tough because I wanted it to be inspired by Disneyland, but I also wanted it to look unique and kind of have its own feel. And really, a lot of these started coming out looking like plantation houses, which is cool, but I wanted it to look more like this kind of isolated, single house. And one of these came out looking like this, which I love the architecture, but it was just too dilapidated for me. I just didn't like the way it looked. And eventually I got this one, which, I just love. If they ever make a new Haunted Mansion, I hope it looks like this, because it, you can tell it has that Disneyland feel, but overall it's just unique and it's like completely white, and I just love the way it looks. And of course, what would a Haunted Mansion be without a graveyard? Now, instead of a pet cemetery, I actually wanted it to have a full-on kind of Boot Hill cemetery, kind of like a Knott's Berry Farm if you've ever been, but probably a little bigger. Now, I love the idea of it being in the bayou, and all of these had very unique feels, but I think overall, this one was my favorite. I love the little blue orbs kind of floating around. Maybe it would be a little like, Pandora, the world of Avatar with all the bioluminescence. And overall, I just love the way that came out. Now, there's one more thing I wanted in my New Orleans Square, besides, Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean, and that's to kind of unify the two. Now, at the end, kind of near the outside, I wanted a little, like, watery cove, rocks surrounding it, so it's not really open. Maybe this park would be built next to an ocean, or something kind of like Tokyo Disney Sea, so it could be actually open to it. I think that would be super cool. But, I kind of wanted, trade ships or, wrecked pirate galleons. And something I thought would be cool is you kind of have these caverns, kind of like on Tom Sawyer Island at Disneyland. These kind of pirate coves you can go in and out of and wander through with skeletons and treasure. And it just came out looking super cool. And I love the idea of just exploring this kind of bayou, mix of a pirate cave. So overall, I think these are some of my, favorite images that kind of capture the feel of my New Orleans Square mini land. Now that we've gone through all of the lands in detail and seeing what they would look like, I went and I made a park map, so kind of a finalized version, now that I sort of had the AI to guide me on what it would look like. And you can see it's a fairly big park, and I don't necessarily know how much sizing it would be, but we can just kind of follow it around clockwise again, so you can see Adventureland. You got the Jungle Cruise, you've got Indiana Jones there right below the name, and then I used Expedition Everest just because I liked the way that kind of fit the very architecture of the land. And the train actually goes through the mountains, so maybe it could have a little some sort of special show, kind of like the dinosaur and Grand Canyon exhibit on the Disneyland railroad. And then coming up to Frontierland, you can see the log ride up there next to Thunder Mountain. Now, I actually used two different Thunder Mountains because I wasn't sure which one I liked more, having it on land or having it on the island. Maybe it would be a mix of both, where it actually goes underneath the river, but you have sections, on the mainland and on the island. And then, of course, you have the nice western little ghost town surrounding it on top. And over to the right, we have Fantasyland. Not much that I really changed here other than adding It's a Small World up in the top right, just because I like having that, large, grand exterior like at Disneyland. So that's really the only thing I changed. And then coming down to Tomorrowland, you know, it was kind of hard. I couldn't really find any images like the AI because it doesn't exist yet, but I have, Tron up there, and I kind of mixed it with Autopia or Tomorrowland Speedway, just because that's I love that idea of those two being interconnected and having that movement. And of course, you have Space Mountain at the back with the People Mover going in and around it, and just have a lot of buildings. Another thing I wanted to add is that I'd love for there to be a remake of Adventures Through Inner Space. That would be super cool. Another Omnimover or maybe a trackless ride. So that's really all of Tomorrowland. And then finally coming down is New Orleans Square. Now I wasn't really able to incorporate the Pirate Cove area because I wasn't sure what to do, how to include that on the map. But you can see it looks a little empty here because it was just hard to get good pictures. But overall, that's kind of the feeling I was going for with the Haunted Mansion up at the back. And then kind of you can enter in through Main Street. And then finally, the last thing is I just put the Disneyland train station because this whole map was based on the Magic Kingdom. I added the Disneyland train station because I think it looks a little better than the Magic Kingdom one with the red. And then also up, I used the Paris castle as the castle for the land and just made it a little bigger. Just because I think that's probably the best looking castle in all of the parks. It's my favorite, and I think it matches the AI generated image the most. But overall, that is my Disneyland, my Disney park. So I hope you enjoyed, going through all these with me and seeing what kind of a new Disneyland would look like. Again, if you haven't seen it already, go watch the Offhand Disney video. His is also just amazing, probably a lot better quality than mine. And I think it's cool to see, two different takes on the same kind of idea. But also, I'd love to see other people do this and make their own park with AI, or just kind of design their own park in general, because I don't know how many other people would put like a Matterhorn in their Adventureland, or have New Orleans Square connected to Main Street. There's a lot of unique things that can happen, especially when you're messing with AI and it kind of takes your ideas and does its own thing and runs with them, and you kind of lose a little bit of control, but I think that can help with creativity. So again, I encourage you guys to try this on your own and just have some fun with it. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.